What does it mean?
At the bone, hole in the bone.
Hole in the bone, that's what it is. So that's what we're talking about. It's a piece of shin, okay? So it's like your calf. So it's a very tough, hard-working muscle. It's got lots of sinew through it. And even though that's a young animal, if you fry that and you cook it, tough as old boots, impossible to chew, okay? So this needs long, slow cooking. And of course, that long, slow cooking is all about bringing out flavour, and so it concentrates the flavour, and that's what we all love. It's delicious. Okay, first step is just to season this meat and dust it with a little flour, okay? And really what this flour will do is give the sauce a bit of body, okay? It'll thicken it. There's a couple of different ways to do this. You can dust the meat in flour, or you can actually seal the meat and caramelise it like we did with the shepherd's pie, so it's quite dark. And then what's called singe, which just means singe the flour. So you seal the meat, sprinkle it with a little bit of flour in the same pot and pop it in the oven until the flour browns a little, all right? And the seasoning part is important, obviously, because we've talked about how we start developing flavours from the outset, from when we start cooking, all right? So flour's on, and then what we're going to do is go to the pan and fry this until it's nice and golden brown. So in with the oil, and then lay these little veal shin pieces into the oil and colour it. Now, because there's flour on these pieces of veal, it'll need a little bit more oil than you think, because it'll form a crust, also absorb it a little bit. And because we talk about oil as being that point of contact with the product, in this case the veal, it allows it to colour evenly.
Gary, I noticed you've chosen a copper pot. Is there a reason you've used the copper over just a straight stainless pan?
I always say when choosing a pot, a heavy base pot is the key. That means it's got that nice big chunk of metal on the bottom because it's transferring the heat and it's holding the heat.
Yeah.
All right? You're seeing what's happened now, like particularly this piece, is that you're getting some nice caramelisation, not only on the meat, but also that flour. It's putting colour into the flour, and that will translate into the sauce in two ways, colour, but also the sweetness from the juices from the meat. Remember, in the heat of the competition, panicking at this stage and not spending enough time caramelising is going to cost you in terms of flavour, all right? This veal is perfectly coloured now, OK? So we're going to remove this from the pan, and then we're going to pop the vegetables in and caramelise those as the next process. We're doing that Italian classic Osso bucco. We dusted the veal shin in flour, we seasoned it, and then we caramelised it in our pan. Now to the vegetables. What we've got to do now is caramelise these vegetables. So a little bit of oil into the pan, and then we're going to add our mirepoix or basic vegetables. And they're always going to be roughly the same. Things like carrots, and I've just diced those. And I've actually diced them quite specifically into what they call a macedon, all right, which is just a small dice, even size, all right? Because I think that goes in some part to produce a really beautiful looking dish, all right? Nice and consistent. But it's up to you. You know, if you're at home, big chunky pieces of carrot, no problem. So I put 1 carrot, 2 stalks of celery, and 1 onion in there. So we'll just let that gather a little bit of heat again. And again, at this stage, we add a little bit of seasoning. Generally, I just use salt, but you can put a little bit of pepper in. All right, again, that goes towards layering the flavours. Put in some chopped garlic. There's a couple of cloves of garlic there, but if I was at home, I might put 4, 5, 6 cloves of garlic in. Just gives that a nice depth of flavour. And then also some aromatics. In this case, I've got some thyme and a bay leaf. The reason I'm putting more oil in now, and you don't need to, is just that it's helping it caramelise evenly, OK? And then I've got a couple of tablespoons of tomato paste, because I want a nice, rich tomato sauce. We'll just stir that in and cook it out. Now, sediment's starting to build up quite quickly on the bottom, so I need to add white wine to deglaze that. Now, there's 1 cup of white wine into the pan, and then remove that sediment using your spoon from the bottom of the pan, OK? Now, we just remember, when we add white wine, you want to just burn off that alcohol and reduce it, just so that it becomes a little sweeter. Next thing is some liquids. So I've got a can of chopped tomatoes, and then I'm going to put in about 2 cups of really good stock. I'm using veal stock. I always look at it in levels in terms of adding flavour to a dish. A veal stock is a good all-rounder, OK? But in saying that, if you don't have veal stock, use chicken stock, because it's a very neutral base, very neutral flavour, and actually in some cases I think you get a better product because you let the ingredients that you're putting in shine through. Now the veal shin goes into the sauce. The key here now is just to pop these shins in and just bring this whole thing up to the boil. Pop a lid on. And you've got a choice. You can either simmer it on the stove, which I think is risky. And the reason I think it's risky is because it has a tendency to catch if the liquid thickens, or you can pop it in the oven. And for me, that's the best way of doing it. You get a nice, even, all-round heat, no risk of catching or burning. We're going to pop in some cannelli beans. Most beans need a soak if you want them to cook evenly. It's not essential. You could just, if you want, give these a wash and pop them in the stew. They will cook, all right? But what soaking does is start off a process, okay? It's rehydrating a dried product, okay? And they tend to cook more evenly, and they tend to cook a little quicker. The things that you really need to soak are things like kidney beans, right? Which have a toxin in the skin, and that needs to be soaked and washed away. It just gives you indigestion. You know, it's not something that's going to kill you, but you just need to be aware of that, okay?
Soaking the beans, how long do you soak them for?
A couple of hours will do.
Yeah.
It's
You don't
really,
just soak
like
them
I say, if you
overnight.
soak them too long, then you find all the skin slip off and you end up with a broken product.
They still need cooking then after that.
But you're cooking it, and remember, this is going in the oven for an hour and a half to 2 hours, so it's got plenty of time to cook. OK, so we've drained the water off the beans, and we're just going to rain them in and just let that simmer away while the meat's cooking. On with the lid, and we're going to pop that into a moderate oven, about 160 degrees. And this is going to take about an hour and a half, 2 hours to cook. We'll know when it's cooked because we'll take a little piece out, press our fork through the meat and see whether it gives. If you can't do that, then the braise isn't ready. The Osso bucco's been in the oven. Smells delicious, smells beautiful. See how delicate this is, right? If I lift a piece out, see how it's just... Oh,
Ooh, Gary.
I was just about to test it, George. Now, you see, now it makes sense to put it in a big pot. Yeah, tester for George, right. Now, all I'm going to do now, classically... Is good? Classically, gremolata is an accompaniment with Osso bucco. Now, I'm not going to do the full gremolata, which is lemon, parsley and garlic, but I'm just going to grate a little bit of lemon over the top. And I do this, I'm just a lemon freak. I put lemon zest in all sorts of things because I just love that little zesty finish. George, stop dipping your bread in. I haven't finished yet. And then I need to move that over here, George, so you can continue snacking. And I'm going to chop some parsley, throw it on the top. So a little bit of that broadleaf parsley. And just shred it. Don't worry about chopping it finely. So quite coarse. And we'll just put that on the top. I might get you to give that a little bit of a move around, actually, George.
Yep. You know what I love about this dish so much? It's warming, you know?
Yeah.
When you look at it, you feel...
It's winter fire, isn't it?
You feel excited. And for me, as weird as it sounds, I love the meat, but I love all the sauce. That's what I love the most, you know?
The braise is the sauce, a bit like a curry for me. I don't care about the meat, I just want the sauce. Now, this is the naughty bit. This is the fattening bit, right? But you just put a little dash in.
Just
Just a little dash. We hardly had any oil in there at all. And you're going to get, between that parsley, the olive oil and the lemon zest, you're just going to get that lovely, fresh finish, OK? If you want to leave the olive oil out, leave it out. But for George and I, the olive oil goes in. You just carry on. Nice. So that's my one-pot winter wonder, and that's Osso bucco.